All right, so I want to give you guys what would be the best case scenario in a Trump victory. So let's say Trump wins this election, and then what's the best possible way it could go where we do the least amount of damage? So I think right up front, it would be Trump saying, fuck it, and goes rogue and doesn't trust any of the advisors around him who have been telling him terrible things, people like Larry Kudlow and Mike Pompeo. And then he goes ahead and ends the wars. Could a Trump going rogue do something like that? I do think it's possible, which is why, again, this is the best case scenario if Trump wins. Because he keeps over and over, he's floated this idea of ending the wars, and then he keeps not doing it. Presumably because his neocon advisors tell him don't do it, or because a general comes in and tells him, here's why we can't do that, sir. And he goes along because, by and large, I think he's somebody who has no core beliefs, and so can be swayed easily by the last person that's in the room. So, but it is possible. This scenario is possible. That he says, forget it, I want to have part of my legacy be this, ending the wars. And so he could say, fuck it, and end the wars. This would be a best case scenario under a Trump win. The other thing is, and this is less likely, but possible, is that Jared and Ivanka convince him to add on to the First Step Act, which was the criminal justice reform that he did, which, to be fair, it's one of the best things he did. It was a first step. It was a step in the right direction. And they could get him to expand on the First Step Act, and maybe they could convince him. I don't think he'd ever legalize weed, but I could see him being convinced to decriminalize weed. But again, this would be under a scenario where Trump goes rogue, effectively. Because by and large, what he's shown us is that in his time in office, he defaults to what the establishment wants him to do. That's what he's been doing. The other thing which could potentially happen, which wouldn't be terrible, is that we get some sort of infrastructure deal in the second term where, Democrats and Republicans are like, okay, we effectively have a COVID depression or recession and we need stimulus. Let's make the stimulus in some sort of infrastructure deal. Make it part of an infrastructure deal to try to almost copy the New Deal in a way. Of course, they wouldn't go as far as the New Deal, but some sort of infrastructure deal, even if it's half measures galore, I think that's possible as well. Now, the rest of his second term, honestly, what you want to hope for is, for the love of God, just don't do any more damage. Just don't do any more damage. So you would really want a Democratic Party to obstruct on another level where he can't get any more tax cuts for the rich through, he can't get any more deregulation through, he can't continue to damage the environment like he did when he got rid of the rules on the coal power plants. So the best case scenario would be he does these handful of things that are good because he goes rogue, but then he gets blocked with every other thing he wants to do. That would be a best case scenario for Trump. Now, obviously, I don't even need to say this part, but I'll say it anyway. This isn't going to happen. Again, what we're doing right now is just intellectual exercises. What would a best case under Biden look like and a worst case under Biden look like? What would a best case under Trump look like and a worst case under Trump look like? And this is the best I could come up with for a best case scenario for Trump. It's not going to happen, but in theory, you run a simulation in 100,000 worlds, and one time in Trump's second term would he do these things. So there you have it. That's the best case scenario for a Trump win. Again, to copy Trump, we'll see what happens.